You got to understand that the land masses itself, and I have even been announced this from somebody else, that you can walk from USA to China. There's a way. The lands are much closer than anyone perceives. Why do you think that you could? I've said this before, but why do you think you could take airplanes and you can only go to a certain location with these airplanes? That they're only designated to certain areas. Why do you think other areas are off limits once you hit those spots? It goes into the effect that they hide corporate types of things, as well as their fortifying speeds of what's others on the other side of the doctrine effect. Besides the lands being more conjoined together, the other side is a mass vortex or wormhole that actually distributes to a way underneath to the inner world. I mean, if you go and you look in it, you look down in it, it's huge, it's massive. You can actually see an opening to the lands underneath.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 18. Blue, how are you?
I'm good today, Mike.
I know we've got a lot to talk about today. I was blown away by the pictures that you had sent me earlier. Tell everybody what we're going to talk about today.
One of the main things, and very important, that's been going on within the last few weeks, up to I would say a month, but the few weeks up to a week would go more in literal term what this is. The aerodynamic actuated elemental refurbishment lines or seeds being in correlation with certain cities and replicated towns itself. These are caught, in fact, by higher dynamic speeds from star units, certain Andromeda species mainly, higher Ios effects into remaintaining the core negative sickness that was being accumulated as of recently within these cities. Australia was one of them, and it's being scattered abroad to other sectors. Think about an electromagnetic interference line that was being dedicated, not through HARP, but something else. These type of electromagnetic interference lines or sicknesses on its plateau has nothing to do with the weather part. More or less, it has to do with the electromagnetic field frequency part. So neurally and physically, it would cause someone to dumb themselves on a definition, dumb it down on a very, very low level, caused by frequencies, mainly database through networks itself.
Before we get in depth here, I do want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe and click on the notifications. Of course, if we're not where you find your stuff, let us know and we'll get to where you find your videos or podcasts. Thank you again for joining in today. Blue, let's get right into it. Let's go ahead and talk about this. We talked about it a tad in 17, the Lemuria, the connection with them and the Telos societies.
The Telos and Teros societies had to do with the different kinds of transcendental events of two different replications. One that deals with the land and one that deals with the Hathor, the water. Telos deals with the land. Telos. Not to be mistaken for Teros. The land had to do with Lemurias, Mount Shasta, the inner world and underground fortification speeds that deal with the in-between platforms. It can deal with elven folks. They can deal with higher definition speeds with other extraterrestrial or hyper-dimensional beings, the humanoid statistics, and as well as anything that goes on land fortifying speeds to a paranormal paradox defense. Now, the Teros societies deal with the Atlantis, the Atlanteans, the mermaids, underwater, and the in-level and in-depth scenes of effects for the Aether's distribution awareness code, as well as how high the electromagnetic spheres go. Both differences go through one similarity. One similarity goes into the transitia effect of the connections being joined together through the middle transition tunnel system. Aerodynamics link up to the inner sublets itself. There's an actual whirlpool on the other side of the planetized system, of the planetized grid, and that's what we're going to get into next.
That's crazy, because I looked at one of the images you had sent me, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, we've talked about this inner realm. We've talked about the these connections with maybe Mammoth Cave and Mount Shasta, and we're the one image, and I'm going to put it up here and post, the one image that you sent me actually shows the layout and actually shows the landmass in between. And if you think about it, on this image, there's a central sun in the middle there, and we've kind of been taught that that does exist, because we've been taught that there's this magma or this giant hot core in between that, and that's how we rotate and so forth. And it just blows my mind that we were close, but maybe not 100% right. I'm seeing the access from these places on Earth here. It just and the hollow part. My mind has been blown today looking at this stuff again this morning, and this is mind-blowing stuff. So I implore you, when we're done with this show, go back and listen again, because you're probably going to pick up on something a little better here. But go ahead and tell me more about these whirlpools.
Well, there's one main whirlpool or vortex. In transitia effect, you know how the humans or higher replicated beings, including NASA, they would hide away the facts of what's on the other side of the mainframe, what's on the other side of the planet itself. We see a lot of that. Let's just throw out one of these physical globe things or a map. They don't really ever, do they ever really much? They never really show it at a full extent, only what they want you to see. And that it can easily nowadays be covered up for something else. It could be, we got to understand that the landmasses itself, and I've even been announced this from somebody else, that you can walk from USA to China. There's a way, the lands are much closer than anyone perceives. Why do you think that I've said this before, but why do you think you could take airplanes and you can only go to a certain location with these airplanes, that they're only designated to certain areas? Why do you think other areas are off limits once you hit those spots? It goes into the effect that they hide corporate types of things, as well as their fortifying speeds of what's others on the other side of the doctrine. In fact, besides the lands being more conjoined together, the other side is a mass vortex or wormhole that actually distributes to a way underneath to the inner world. I mean, if you go and you look in it, you look down in it, it's huge, it's massive. You can actually see an opening to the lands underneath, because it's like, I mean, you got to think about, I don't know if you've heard about this movie, but this one, they find it in a mountain. They find this, the inner world things in a mountain. It's based on a movie. Think about that. You're going to find something that's so big that it's pretty much out there in the opening, but it's not. They have pictures I sent to you that have shown something like this. Real pictures.
It's crazy to think that, a lot of the focus is look up at the stars, look out there, look up there. Nobody's talking about this. And you're absolutely right. There's a reason why you can't fly over certain places. Like, for instance, you can't fly over the South Pole. There's certain areas. You can't fly over Area 51. You can't fly over these certain areas. And we're not being told the truth as to why. I'm sure we're not. I mean, look at recently how our government has lied to us in the past several years on a bunch of things. So this doesn't surprise me at all. I just hope people are open-minded enough to wrap their mind around the idea that there could be that we're saying there is an inner realm, there is a world inside a hollow earth. They have lands, they have ocean, they have a sun. I mean, am I following this right?
There are other portals and other dimensional frequency outlets, as well as the tunnel systems itself that dealt with what the military enacted with. but those go up more. Those are not as deep and in depth as this type of fortifying seeds. Those are more level based because they are, they could be transiting between good or bad, like the graphene effect or simulation codes to help mankind and higher index species.
All right, so what kind of beings are there? Are there human beings inside this inner realm?
It's actually called Agartha. That is the real name of the lands in between. Agartha is mainframe into a tenor society that can fortify to numerous different outlets. So these outlets could go to humanoids, advanced terrestrials, and as well as paranormal effective protocols. And one of the main reasons why humans are not even diagnosed on that mainstream yet, and to knowing about this in-between platform and being able to visit and do this and do that is because they are neurally not ready for that transcendent code yet. You got to take that move forward as well as awakening your access code to it.
Can a regular human function there? Is there enough oxygen there? Is there, I mean, can we actually function in the inner realm? If we went there today, me and you went there today to Agartha, we could breathe, we'd be fine.
Only special ops, secret governments, and certain militaries are permitted there. It's the same oxygenized system as the upper realm, but it's only permitted because of its safety net right at this time and throughout the timelines itself. But like you had said, Mike, there's going to come a point where everyone needs to make a step forward so we're all coexisting.
Wow, that's wild to think about that. So there are outer worlds, there are other dimensions, and there's ways to get to them through a wormhole or what have you. And then we have the same thing going inner world through this tunnels, through the cave systems, through these openings at the top and the bottom of what we are told is the planet, the globe, the North Pole, and the South Pole. I've seen reports and video of military operations and so forth at the South Pole. So we're saying the South Pole and the North Pole are the main entrances to Agartha.
Well, it could be a core connection to one of the main vortexes itself, but even then, it's highly protected. So regardless of the aspect of anyone trying to come in, even if you're a bad doctrine, good doctrine, doesn't matter. If you are not permitted, they have hyper-fortified technologies that could pretty bounce you off that wavelength. Some of the reason why humans are so hidden from that. Physically, like neural transmission devices can pull you away from that type of outlet, depending if it needs to be safely and proactively protected at that time. But that doesn't mean that others don't have a right to know what's going on. It's just how to be played out safely and on its proper timeline.
You had mentioned in the show notes here that something about Alaska. How does Alaska play into this?
Well, Alaska has to deal with one of the doctrines of effects that deal with the Federation itself and other societies that deal with the inner world, the inner advanced protocols, military by agendizing sequencing codes, as well as maintaining distributions of what can be fortified soon. It's not something that's permitted for everyone to go to yet. It's just like the other equation I admitted about. What was it? North Pole, South Pole, Alaska, and I believe the northeastern equators are not permitted at the time, but are allowed to be documented for certain protocols at hand.
And I don't.
Antarctica.
And I don't know if there's any connection here or not, but you think about it. I don't know how much science there is to study or how much environment or how much weather there is to study, but for the past, I don't know how many years, there's been a lot of countries all have their flag in the ground and they're one or two scientists right there in Antarctica. They make like a base there. It's like everyone wants to be near the entrance or whatever else is going on there. And then I think also to the recent situation with 45. He had opened up Alaska for us to do drilling. I mean, I don't know. Were we drilling for oil, really? I mean, maybe there's something else there. Biden comes in and shuts that part off. And then all of a sudden, conveniently, almost, in the middle of the night, they announce some sort of other Alaska deal that they have going on with drilling, but it's going to take more time to get there. So I'm just wondering, being they always lie to us, I'm wondering, is that situation with the drilling in Alaska, is that part of this or no?
CERN, CERN, CERN. They could be making macrolized tunnel systems in that area.
The middle oceans, is that the same oceans that we share in on top of the globe, on top of the earth, on top side here?
It's the other side. It's the side that they don't show. Like I said to you, they're only showing a map of what you want to see, but then the reality is that there are differences in that type of fortifying speed. There is a wider expanse of the ocean's gridways, and anyone who tries to go in that area, even on an airplane or a boat, they will be dismissed. It's highly protected. It's on the other side of the ocean's mainframe itself. Like I said, pay attention to what they show about globes and NASA and this and that. They won't show a lot of the other side. You got to see that in-between scenario.
It's crazy because we've talked about it in shows past, how wild deep sea life looks. It looks almost alien, if you would. It looks almost like it's from another place or another time or another dimension. The same ocean that's out here is the same ocean that the inner realm is, that Agartha is able to see, touch, and so forth. That may be why we've also seen what they call USOs, I guess, unidentified submerged.
Those run more with the Atlanteans. Those run more with the sequencing codes and the underwater streams, like the Teros societies, if you will. And also, I wanted to mention about blue holes, if you have heard about them. They're very deep holes in certain areas in the water. They're perfectly circular. Like someone just put a cylinder straight down. You get what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're real. They're not often seen, but they actually go into some of these inner worlds, some of these outer dimensions, caverns. It could be going into other societies. That's why they say, always mention it's too dangerous to try to explore these things. Scientists have mentioned that because of the safety reasons. That, in truth, is the reality as well. There are beings that can go and exist in these times of blue holes, and there be protectors, or they actually live in and around that, like serpents, sea serpents, or some type of other paradox effect that lives underwater in these areas. That's one reason why they say not to screw around with that when you're exploring. Another is, yes, they can hold a type of inner civilization code. Some of them are portals. You go so far down deep, you'll end up on the other side of something else.
That's crazy. I remember being a kid, and the running gag was, if you dug a hole deep enough, you can go all the way through the earth to the other side, and you come out at China. That was always the thing. Oh, you're digging a hole to China. That was the thing. I don't know why, but so theoretically, if I was able to physically drill straight down, if I was permitted, which I probably wouldn't be, but if I was able to do this, I would eventually hit Agartha, and I would eventually be able to see another hole.
Well, no, that's only in certain areas. I do have to interject. Blue holes are only in the water, and they're actually pre-made. They've been around for hundreds of years, and there's not something man-made at all whatsoever. You got to look at. I could probably explain it about it on my next upcoming show, so that way you get an understanding of a deeper definition of what I meant by that. And
yeah, that'd be good.
The very clear water. These areas have, why they're called blue holes is because you can look down in it, and the water around it, these lakes, they're mainly around in lakes. They're not going to be in oceans. They're not going to be in rivers. They're mainly in lakes.
Wow.
So you gotta look. You find these things. They are huge. They could be half a mile radius, I believe, one of the proximities they caught into around one of them. They can be really, really big on radius scale and very, very deep. So those types of signalized codes are very different from what you said. If you drill down something, you could find a skeleton or what. It could be thousands of miles before you could hit certain areas in Agartha from where you're at. And even then, you need a transitor hyper technology effect and be able to scope out where certain electromagnetic fields are through that process.
You know, it just blows my mind because, you know, before you even approached me with this topic for today, and I had seen something within the last week on TV, and I'm very bad with names and locations and stuff like that because I'm a multitasker. I try to do a couple things at a time if I can, and so I didn't catch all the detail. But there was a show on one of the Discovery History type channels, and it was talking about a guy who had this tremendous hole on his property, and it was surrounded by these stones. And he was curious about it. And some of the people in the area, this is a very sparsely populated area out in the West somewhere, like Nevada, Montana, somewhere out that way. And he has this hole. And one day he got to studying it, and he threw something down there and he couldn't hear it drop. So he had this fishing equipment and he hooked it up, and he had like a bunch of reel, and he couldn't hit the bottom. He was tying reel after reel, all these lines together, and he could never hit the bottom. So he called on the radio. There was the guy, George Noros, I think is his name. He calls into this radio station. They talk about it. Within 24 hours, the military shows up. They shut his property down. They surround it. They kick him off his property. They talk to him, and he's never seen or heard from again. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. Now, they've gone back to this day, and they've gone back and they've found this area on this property. It does exist. It's not a myth. It's just a call to a radio show. It's not. They showed this, but now it has some sort of deviation in it. Like you can't drop all the way straight down and not hear the bottom anymore. Like they've done something to adjust that area. That's crazy? Is that possible? It was an access point to Agartha, like we're talking about here?
Yes and no. It could be an access point to a portal or paradox event. There could be something negative, and the Foundation doesn't know about it yet, so they had to hide it from humans in the way that they're indocing stuff until they figure it out. They do a lot of that to protect the enactment codes of mankind because they're lower codes than the higher paradox or parallels. There are reasons for you to do that to protect, because it might be something negative, or they do that until they find out what it is and have to transit it into something else to hide it. Because, like I said, Mike, I mean, humans, they're not in the paranormals that they should be. They're not more into their hyper psyche awareness than they should be. They're downsized from that, and they're hidden from the real agendas of what's being going on between the good, bad, and the in-between.
Wow. Crazy stuff there. I know we got another thing we want to get into here, but my mind is just blown. We're probably going to have to come back and touch on this again a little bit. Tell me about this. I think you were talking about it at the very beginning here about the aerodynamic actuated lower elemental photon platforms. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what's been going on within the last week or so, especially in Australia sector, is a lot, especially within the past few days, what I've been told from a friend of mine who's a Starseed. She had stated, if you live in that sector, there have been a lot of half-15ths of physical star units being scattered abroad. I believe her and somebody else had stated that, and as well as the energetic photonic platforms, because these star units are actually Andromeda units. They're working in a higher aerodynamic strain to maintain stabilities upon certain refraction codes here, co-op through military agenda, and to rearrange the bioelementals in its speed. So diagnosing there are towns, there are cities, and there are higher indexer points that most humans be at this current time. And if you pay attention, especially since recently, a lot, you go in stores, you go here, you go there, you're going to notice people are so much slower They're slower physically. You're going to a cash register person, they're slower physically. Everything's so slow. You notice it? I don't know. But if others do, in their neural conjunction, it's slowing them down. Physically, they're slowed down. Neurally, they're slowed down. They're dumbing them down with these graphene inversion effects. Now, we could talk about bioelementals that dealt with the weather, but this type of effect had to deal with the circuits that go through neural transmission, bioelectric genetic sequencing alpha codes, something that pretty much they're mainstreaming through these 5G towers. So it doesn't have to do with HARP, it more or less has to do with certain electric companies.
Wow.
Electric companies co-opting and working against an agenda that's for good. So they're pretty much trying to decipher a dumbed down sequencing database. So the alpha high units and the Andromeda species, what we work with, are pretty much on tenor and high speeds to maintaining a better score of effect. We don't want humans dumbed down. We want their levels maintained and better correlated. And believe it or not, if you're going to see a bunch of star units around Australia, you're going to start seeing them scattered abroad in other places of effect to help stabilize what certain negative beings have corrupted.
Wow.
And it also goes with the weather. The past few days scattered abroad, how it was higher, there was a lot more rain, or the weather looked more normal. You know, it had the normal light coating effect, which should be about yellow or white, bright yellow, or to a light blue or purple radon effect in the aeronautical streams. That's normal. So distributing that between the higher indexer points itself, bioelementals should be able to restabilize proinactive scattered abroad. So the mainstream is they're trying to degenerate the populace through their dumbed down interventionals, not with HARP, but with the certain companies of electromagnetic fields, as well as these technologies and HARP, including their generative nodes. Well, through the force, through other militaries are trying their best, including us, to get rid of that scene of events. People need to understand, we're not dealing with just shots in the arm. You're not just dealing with spray planes. It goes deeper than that.
Wow. That's crazy. We've just scratched the surface, I'm sure, here. We're almost out of time. Here's what, I appreciate all this, Blue. And again, if you're listening to this, you might want to go back and listen again. I know I am. Before we do go today, is there anything you can tell us directly, any more information you could tell us from your positions with the Space Force and the Federation?
Well, the Starseeds are moving forward, and the effects of what the ascension process is moving forward as well. Donald Trump will make sure that when he is enacted, what needs to be set in place, as well as putting and pulling out to a higher indexing wave. Now, the system is moving as well, like I had stated, into that credit financial stability code, and as well as others through SpaceX of what's coming into that industry. We are motivating that forward too. Humans be able to get their proactive for of hyperstar integrating format, as well as what's coming on into the scenes within a few years.
Wow, that's awesome stuff there. I'm glad we get a little insight from you each show here about the Space Force and the Federation. A final word for today, Blue?
Final word is this, Mike. Keep moving forward. Stabilize yourselves. We're all waking up. Whether we like it or not, we're all going to end up waking up to what's really going on. Now, whether you're ready for that or not, that's up to you. But let me tell you one thing. It's going to be a bumpy road, no matter what. It already has been for the past, 5-6 years? I guarantee you, once that bumpy road ends, everything's going to go about real smoothly for everybody.
Awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad we see light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train coming at us. I'm glad. Blue, this has been wonderful stuff today. There's a lot of information here. Folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. Click on the notifications so you know when we post new material. Check us out on the socials as well. And Blue, thank you again. Wonderful stuff today. Episode 18. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.